strong governance system on Flare that literally doesn't exist on most large networks, right? Like if you want to change something on Ethereum, there's no governance vote. There's a cabal of engineers, fantastic researchers, I will say that much. But they decide whether Ethereum moves to proof of stake. And you go along with it or you fork the blockchain. With Flare, we give the ability to the community to vote not only on what the foundation is proposing, and initially we're just starting with voting on what the foundation is proposing, but later, after Flare exits beta mode, the community will be able to propose changes. Tried to structure the governance in as logical manner as possible. For instance, if you look at Bitcoin, it's almost impossible to change things. If you look at Ethereum, the governance really happens amongst a very small set of people. What we're trying to do is to have a governance system which allows for changes, but also, and this is a really important point that people haven't necessarily picked up on, that doesn't also suffer from one of the core problems of democracy, which is a tyranny of the majority. So essentially, Flare is hard to change over time, but if there is a deep will to change it, then it can be changed. And on the other side, if a vote comes from the foundation, if there is a deep will not to follow the foundation, then that also can't happen. So the foundation can be overruled. And that is kind of the philosophy behind our governance mechanisms.
Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh. The first of the 36 FLAREDROP distributions will begin on March 17th at 12 UTC time. Will be available to claim. All the information about the effects of the proposal and distribution timeline are we going to go through in this video. I know this is something many of you have been waiting for, as well as myself. So, quick background. 675 million FLR will be distributed monthly for 35 months. And on 36 month, it's like 584 million. Every 30 days, an installment will be proportionally allocated to the wallets that hold wrapped Flare. The tokens must be claimed within 90 days or they will be burned. So by wrapping Flare, it adds programmability to the actual token. So conceptually, it's the same as wrapping when you bring assets across a bridge, because you're wrapping a smart contract around them. It's wrapping programmability.
So there's a thing called wrapped Flare. And the reason why there's a thing called wrapped Flare is because the Ethereum virtual machine doesn't know how to do mathematical operations on the native token. So you have to, or essentially you have to convert it into ERC20, but not on Ethereum, but an ERC20, a wrapped version of the token on Flare.
It stays on Flare.
Stays on Flare, but it's using the ERC20 standard that then allows a smart contract to do mathematical operations on it.
So Flare built these special vote power contracts, which are based on the mini-me token, which I'm going to do a separate video on, which is more technical, but it really breaks down the origins of it. So every month, there will be a 23-day period where there will be 3 snapshots. And they got a nice little diagram you could see here where it shows within every 30 days, there'll be a distribution cycle for the Flare drop. The number of tokens a wallet can claim is based on the average WRFL holdings from 3 random blocks during the calculation period. The tokens are available to claim from the day 30 and must be claimed within 90 days. So this will allow nobody to front run the distribution, and it'll be completely random. It will take the mean WFLR balance based on these 3 random blocks chosen from the 23 days prior to the distribution day. The received FLR will then be proportional to the average as a percentage of the total circulating WFLR. So for example, to give a nice example here, if a wallet contains an average of 0.001% of the total circulating supply of WFLR, then that wallet will be eligible for 0.001% of the next distribution allocation. So these tokens will need to be actively claimed by every user, just like the FTSO delegation rewards. For example, by using the Flare portal. I highly suggest using the Flare portal. I think it's great. It's a really slick interface. I mean, you could do it through Bifrost, but the Flare portal has some additional functionality with the personal delegation account, which I think is very helpful. And that allows you, if you wanted to, some people have asked, how do I delegate to more than 2 FTSOs? I believe you could do it through the personal delegation account because it's like an extension of your account that's only attached to your main account. And you could have auto claim set up. So we're going to go through auto claim in a little bit. I think that'll make it much easier because going forward, there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to be thinking of that you might forget to claim your Epoch rewards every Wednesday or, twice a week. This is what the auto claim is set up to do, and it's a beautiful functionality. And Bifrost just implemented it, so you could do it in there. You could also do it in the personal delegation account, and that's the Flare portal. So it's portal.flare.network. Flare recently implemented the safe automatic claiming by third parties, allowing users to set and forget. These facilities have already been leveraged by some wallets to offer auto claiming and functionality for FTSO rewards. It is likely providers will offer similar functionality to auto claim the public token distribution. So the expected benefits that come from this is this removes the centralized exchanges. They're out of the picture now. Unless you have wrapped WFLR, you're not getting any. So that 675 million has to be spread amongst those who have WFLR. And it does not include the Flare team or the foundation or any Flare-related entities can claim the distribution. So that's a good thing. So that means that when we take the numbers, you really can't go by the whole WFLR because the Flare team has some WFLR. So we'll talk about that in the future. So this removes the centralized exchanges and it removes the risk of future token loss if their exchange suffers financial issues. With the new on-chain method, users can select where they want to receive their tokens. Any wallet that has held WFLR during the 23 days prior to the distribution day will be eligible to claim a share of that installment. It broadens access to the distribution and allows Flare's connected communities to also benefit, which means more ecosystems have an incentive to grow and participate with Flare. And it can't be overstated enough at how successful this launch was when you have a broad distribution of the token. it's the hardest thing to do is distribute a token. They've been able to get it out there now. And now, if anyone wants any more, they're going to earn it. And participating in the network is going to do that. And we're going to see more things go live. Right now, we just have the delegation. So you have to be patient with the process of a blockchain launching. There's 2 core protocols. We have 1 that's live. Then you'll start to see all these dApps spin up. So only active network participants who are holding WFLR will receive future distributions. This will result in a transfer of tokens from people who are not interested in Flare. So those would be people holding on an exchange. If you're holding it there, you're not getting any. And there is a decent amount of Flare just held. That's not getting any. Only WFLR, which is a vote power token. It's a special vote power token. It's what allows you to utilize the asset and still get the distribution into your main account. And now I've been asked this question multiple times. I'll even link it in the description below this video. In the Flare 2.0 white paper, it explicitly says that you will be able to delegate and earn the distribution, the FTSO, and governance all simultaneously. But there's dApps out there. If they don't integrate it, don't use them. There's no excuse for any dApp to not allow for the capabilities to delegate. Now, you might not be able to delegate to your provider of choice, but that's going to be flattening out very soon. And at the end of beta, there'll be staking. So beta is probably another 6 months. The validators are getting onboarded right now. The FTSOs, there's around 60 or so of them that are being onboarded as validators, including ourselves as the Mickey B. Fresh, FTSO and validator. And there'll be virtual validators. And then at the end of beta, the staking will begin. 2% of the inflation goes to validator rewards. Everyone is able to earn a portion of the validator rewards if they stake. But that's coming down the road, so let's not go too far ahead. So what does this also do? This FIP01 implementation, it reduces inflation. Inflation on the Flare network was previously set at 10% of the fully diluted supply. It is now changed to 10% of the available supply circulating for the first year, 7% for the second year, 5% for the third year, and onwards. Plus, it is capped at 5 billion Flare per year, and this means that over time, the inflation trends towards 0% tokens. The direct benefits is a less inflationary token. The allocation of the monthly inflation to the different parties supporting the network has also been adjusted. Each month, 70% of the inflation amount will go to the FTSO data providers and shared with the FLR token holders who have delegated to them. The network validators then receive 20%, and the stake connector attestation providers receive 10%. So they have a nice, look at this gorgeous implementation timeline of every month, exact day that you could claim. So the first of the 36 distributions will take place on Friday, March 17th, 12 UTC time. WFLR holdings will be calculated based on 3 random blocks from the previous 23 days. Subsequent distributions will happen every 30 days. So March 17th, April 16th, May 16th, June 15th, July 15th, the 14th of August, and so on. The Flare team are not eligible for the Flare drop distributions. So it looks like they're calling it the Flare drop distributions, as Flare drop is one word. Interesting. I like it. So no Flare-related entity, employee, or founder may use their token allocation to earn part of the token distribution. Every team member has signed a legal agreement to ensure that this does not happen and will actively opt out of their wallet from the distribution. This means any WFLR in the Flare team's wallets will not be factored into the distribution calculation, and these wallets will not be able to claim any FLR tokens from the Flare drop distributions. So that's something we got to calculate and keep in mind here. There's some great tools some of these FTSOs have put out, like Flare Space, I think has an excellent website. Let's check them out.
But it's essentially around governance. So at the moment on the Flare network, the foundation submits potential governance proposals, and the users can vote yes or no. Once Flare exits what we call beta stage, where it transitions out of this early stage into essentially what we consider to be a mature, structured network, then community governance also becomes a thing. Flare has a second network called Songbird, which is our canary network. And community governance has a two-house system. Songbird is the lower house, Flare as the upper house. If people understand British or American politics, you would think of it as the House of Representatives and the Senate. When a community governance proposal, when someone wants to make a community governance proposal, they put that proposal on Songbird. Other people in the community can stake to it with their Songbird token. If it wins a community governance round, so there's 4 per year, that proposal must win by amassing the largest amount of stake. It can then be transferred to Flare for a final vote to approve or deny. So that's how our governance system works. Our governance system is broadly based around the idea that we don't want mob rule, meaning just a basic 50%, of people that turn up shouldn't be able to make huge changes on the network, because this is systems need to be stable. Developers need to know how the network works, and they can't have it changing all the time. But governance exists really to, when there's a big, very well supported change that needs to happen, then community governance can force that change to happen. So that's the second role. So delegation to FTSOs, governance, of course, it's the network's transaction token. And then, of course, it will be used, over time, I would assume, in lots of applications.
And also with the governance, he finally explained why there's no 50% threshold in the beginning on Songbird, and why the Flare Foundation and them have more of the vote. It's because there's not supposed to be that many changes on layer ones, especially in the beginning. I mean, if they design the network, they have to slowly phase it out. And it's not supposed to be instant decentralized governance where the community can change whatever they want. The idea is that he called it tyranny of the masses, the majority, where there have been some DApp and DAO networks where people just throw up all these proposals, and it's taking up so much time and energy, and some are good, some are not, but we've got rid of that by filtering down to Songbird. But those proposals are not supposed to pass unless they're significant, because the dApps, everyone building on Flare needs to have stability. So the changes that need to be made should be pretty obvious to most people. The debates can happen before usually the votes go out, and it can be decided, usually. So I think because this one was so controversial, because there were some people that were in the network and not participating, and they had to weed that out. But going forward, we really there shouldn't be too much controversy in a layer 1's changes. And we have the test network there to see it. So now we get to see it, and the foundation, after beta, has to then will still probably put up most of the proposals, but there'll be things that, like, the community encouraged. They're not going to act in a way that's going to randomly There's been no signs of any of that. And that doesn't make it centralized either. But those are 50% votes for a reason. But I'm thinking about it, these community proposals, unless they're like, they need to be enhancements more so than changes, to be honest, because I don't see too much that needs to be changed that would negatively affect the dApp developers. So, no, I think we should be cautious when we stake to those proposals in the future. They might be tied in with something else, because Vitalik talks about the staking pools, and I've thought of that too. And he says how, in collateral positions, so say if all your FLR was in his collateral, say, this argument's sake, say the FS system, and now that collateral pool kind of acted like a DAO. So it randomly selected the FTSOs who it delegated its votes to based on the system. And then that's how it just distributed it. Because there's two types of way to vote. There's explicit and percentage. And this is what they're changing right now. The triggering splits the contract up in the token. Because there's a governance vote and there's an FTSO delegation. And I'm just going to briefly just touch on these. We have FIP02 and STP03 proposals have just launched. This was more of an urgent to support healthy operation while delivering a sufficiently decentralized network. FLARE will offer the community a set of proposed measures to identify and mitigate against malicious activity within the network or its protocols. So FIP02 and STP03, they're doing at once, which is out of the ordinary, according to them. Initial steps towards self-regulation of network protocols. So what this is going to do is it recommends that the implementation of a decentralized collective called the FTSO Management Group, designed to safeguard the honest operation of FTSOs on FLARE and Songbird. I'm going to skip right to the bottom because this is like one of the most important parts. This is only temporary. It says it's only for until staking. So that's how I feel about this, because governance is good to help steer the ship and make decisions, but this is only temporary because we don't have the other set of voters with the FTSO system. And as we get more sampling of more price feeds, it'll be less capabilities to collude. And colluding means that there's these entities that shared algorithms, so they don't try to share the same prices. That's what that means. It's really freeloading is a better term for it, because they're not maliciously doing anything. But I agree. I think it has to stop. But it's a temporary time period we're in because of the process of the way this is rolled out. Remember, this is the most decentralized, most accurate, decentralized Oracle network there is in all crypto. Because FLARE is the only blockchain that is a layer 1 and is secured by the network's token and participation of the entire community.
Is FLARE the first main chain that acts as an Oracle network?
It's absolutely the first main layer 1 that acts as a data provider network.
Because I was just thinking about that. I know of a few other projects that are building on top of other chains. Chainlink comes to mind. Go plugin on top of XDC network. But you're saying that FLARE is an Oracle network in itself, and they're the first main chain?
The core aspect is how you secure that Oracle.
Okay.
The key difference between us and other oracles is that our Oracle is secured at the blockchain layer with the main token of the blockchain. And that is a totally different way of securing an Oracle. And in our view, and I think it's fairly obvious, a substantially more secure way of securing an Oracle. So
right.
The FTSO, the pricing has been really very accurate. It is designed to be able to withstand a very large amount of malfeasance amongst the participants. So essentially, it would take a huge amount of corruption in the Oracle for the Oracle's price to become degraded.
That data to be corrupted.
Exactly, because it's all secured by the token. So it's the same idea as how much corruption a network would need, how many corrupt participants a network would need in order to become corrupt. So it's like the idea of a 51% attack. Whereas these ideas are not inherent in any other oracles. They're often trusted, or if they're using their own token on a blockchain, it's very, very much harder to get that level of decentralization. It's very hard to be able to get so many participants. Most smart contract platforms could not handle the number of participants we have and the amount of data we have. So that's incredibly important.
You could delegate and take that delegation to another FTSO the next 3.5 days. We are missing the other voters, which is the FSET voters. That you'll vote, but you're not financially motivated. You're going to vote for who you want to. You earn from the incentive pool, not from the FTSO inflation. And that's important because that balances out the vote power weight. And we also have the reward band expansion, which is STP2. That's going to take a little longer to go into effect, but that will expand the reward band out. So this is going to create a FTSO management group, which will report possible infractions by FTSO data providers and collectively determine whether punitive actions should be taken. Infractions could be anything that impairs the FTSO ecosystem as a whole, including but not limited to collusion, is defined as a multiple FTSOs data providers showing a strong statistical correlation in their submissions or clearly submitting through the same node. Now, it's important to understand there's owners of FTSOs and there's developers of FTSOs. They can be the same or they can be different. So just keep that in mind to understand the dynamics here. And when it comes to wrongdoings, how does the algorithm or whatever get around? Who benefits? These are the things I would look for as being part of the FTSOs myself. And here, before any of these FTSOs were here, I was covering FLARE. And there's duplication, defined as a multiple FTSO data providers on the same chain, controlled by the same entity and running largely the same code bases, resulting in substantially similar submissions. Yeah, these are things that right now, to affect the situation, since we only have 12 price feeds, once there's hundreds of different price feeds and more indexes, this won't even be an issue. I'm on the fence, like if it really needs a long-term governance there, because things like this could create, unforeseen effects because they could vote to chill these different FTSOs if they're colluding. Now, I like that because if there's an immediate problem and it could be recognized, we could chill them. Now, in the actual proposal, it describes there's going to be a website called FTSO Management Group Self-Policing. And if there is evidence of some malfeasancy or something like that going on, then it'll be discussed, evidence will be presented, but it does say it's temporary. It's only till staking. And I hope none of that will be even necessary. But it's because everyone's trying to get to the best price. So that's the kind of the message I want to get to the community here. We have to support this system of FTSOs because they're also going to be validators. Not all of them, but many of them. And attesters. And they produce a good, they produce a service or natural resource. That data is going to be relayed to other networks. And the video you're going to see next is I'm going to do on the relayer. And you're going to see how that is another way that you could possibly earn in a low-risk manner because you want to take your FLR and ultimately that you want to earn foreign currencies, outside currencies. Like these rewards are great, the distribution, the FLR, FTSOs, but the idea is to earn outside currencies with that value or put it up as collateral. So you'll be able to stake with the FTSO relayers, and then if it's integrated into some cross-chain application that earns fees, because the revenue stream, just like any business or any financial market, there's fees. Now, they're not going to be excessive gas fees. They're for a service. And that's something, this data, since it's secured by the native token. So even though you're not staking, when you delegate, it's the value. You have to have the tokens to be able to delegate. So it's secured. That's why he says sometimes buy proof of stake with the delegating, but you could simultaneously use the token.
So one of the most exciting things, I think, is a protocol that someone has, come to me with, which is cross-chain relay secured by FLARE. So relaying things like the FTSO prices to other blockchains, and rewarding the FTSOs and potentially their delegators for that, but also potentially relaying data between chains. So ETH to, say, Solana, but secured by FLARE, and rewarding the FTSOs and potentially their delegators for that, but also potentially relaying data between chains. So ETH to, say, Solana, but secured by FLARE.
And everyone can participate. And there's 80 oracles. Good luck finding me another oracle system that has 80 oracles independently. You can't, because it's so hard to incentivize somebody to produce that type of probabilistic data. That means there's no one price feed for XRP or BTC. And it has had the most accurate data throughout the last 12 to 18 months because we have the track record of Songbird, same FTSOs. Now we'll see more price feeds added, and they're going to upgrade this to FTSO V2. That's just like kind of a software upgrade, but expect that as being part of the triggers that will take place over the coming weeks or months going forward. So this system has been very powerful.
Once the vote is passed, there would then need to be between, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks before essentially the first FIP01 based distributions would happen, because there's some there are some elements to essentially trigger through governance.
Now, obviously, it's not fair. I get that, and I see that, and it's not profitable for many of these FTSOs to stay. And how do the delegators know how to vote? You want to get the best, but at the same time, you want to, support the ecosystem. And for the time being right now, this will help at least remove the collusion. So we get everyone acting, the right way. But longer term, it's not a long-term solution, in my opinion. I don't think this is. The mechanism design and the economic incentives and the way it's designed should take care of itself. They're going to be validators. They're going to earn validator awards. They have attestations. But this is the hardest problem in blockchain to solve. So they solve the problem, but now distributing the rewards fairly is not the easiest thing. Nobody's really done this yet. So the state connector has deterministic data. The state connector is what allows the relayer to work and slash. So nobody's going to trust those price feed because it's going to spit out one ultimate median price feed. And then it's relayed across to another network, or it could trigger a contract on FLARE that sends a payment on XRP. Like, it could do all these super cool things in the near future with what they're building with these 2 oracle systems. So, cryptocurrency prices are just the first. Also, those price feeds can be implemented right into any dApp on FLARE. and then trigger liquidations and other things. So it's a very powerful resource here. And the one thing blockchain has been missing has been data from the outside world. You want utility? Do you want to see mass adoption? Well, you need the data, or you're not going to have any mass adoption. DeFi is great, and it's shown what financial system could do in decentralized setting, but it needs more data for like derivatives, for peer-to-peer betting, for other financial products, and more consumer applications for the masses. And Flare's building this system out. So they have this whole API network now based on the X chain of Avalanche, because Flare is built on Avalanche's code base, which is 3 chains: the C chain, the P chain, and the X chain. Not going to go into it. Don't worry about the technical details. It's just the underlying code. Flare built all the smart contracts, which are custom and can run very high computation and run super fast. You see how fast the network is. But these 2 core protocols, they're built into the network layer. They're not a layer 2. They're not a dApp. They're secured by the blockchain. That is so important because you hear, oh, this Oracle protocol, that Oracle protocol, even Chainlink. It's not secured by the blockchain. And that is what Flare has that nobody else has, and it's what's going to set them apart. And that's why they expanded their vision far beyond what it originally was. I'm Mickey B. Fresh, and I'm out. Don't forget to vote.
Because I'm sure one of the questions everyone asks is, why did it take us so long to get from the snapshot to here? And that's because we completely rebuilt and redesigned all of the protocols from the ground up.
Okay.
And the reason we did that was to make them extensible beyond one network to many. And so that's like essentially the state connector was completely redesigned and required an extensive re-engineering process to make it essentially able to connect to every network. And so what Flare is today is a network that is designed not only to provide a service to the XRP ledger, but to provide essentially interoperability where possible for all blockchains. And not just blockchains, but with the internet. So with FIPO1, what we're trying to do is actually make that then work, because there is no possibility that interoperability for non-XRP blockchains, that anyone would play with that if there's a set of people receiving tokens for the next 36 months that they have no chance of joining. Essentially, the expanded vision would be dead in the water, completely dead in the water.
Because it would basically be exclusive to XRP at that point.
Exactly. So imagine if you were a developer who wanted to build something between Flare and Cosmos.
Yep.
But yet you've then got this separate group of people who are continuing to receive tokens over here. So therefore, essentially, the existing structure of the distribution just didn't work at all for the concept of having a broadly interoperable chain. It only worked if we were going to be interoperable only with XRP.
Now, that's another question I had for you is, why did you choose the XRP ledger instead of a variety of other blockchains that were out at that time?
So at the time, there were far fewer smart contract networks.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily viable that there would be competitors to Ethereum. To us, the utility in serving multiple networks, especially the smart contract networks, the newer smart contract networks, being able to tie up between XRP, Bitcoin, and the smart contract networks, and Ethereum L2s.
Right.
This is where the utility is. It's acting as the bridge between all of these different things.